Morning, everyone. I'm just going to give the stragglers a few minutes to join. Anybody that's joining a Teams webinar for the first time will have to join in the browser, and so we'll just give people a minute just to join. Okay. Morning, everyone. For those of you that have joined for the first time and don't know me, I'm Lee from Everything Tech. We're a managed IT service provider specializing in the Microsoft Modern Workplace. So we do things like move people from service to cloud and look after people's IT in general. Just a couple of housekeeping points. I'm joined today by Ben. He's my glamorous assistant, and he'll be live in the Q&A. So if you've got any questions at any point during the webinar, you can just ask Ben, and he'll be able to answer those for you live. And anything that he can't answer or anything that you want to follow up on afterwards, you've got my email address, and just drop me a mail and we'll be able to help. This session is being recorded, so if you want to request a copy of the recording to send to other people later, then feel free to drop me a message or drop a note to Ben in the Q&A, and we'll be able to send you a copy of the recording. Today's webinar is a basic intro into Microsoft Teams. So after the webinar, hopefully you'll all be able to go away and be a lot more confident about using the Microsoft Teams product. Just a bit of an intro into Microsoft Teams and why it exists. So for a long time, the business world has fallen behind the consumer world in terms of instant messaging and communication. So it's probably been a long time since you sent an email to a member of your family or to a friend, because you just don't have that personal touch in an email, and it's not instant, so it takes people time to reply, and you end up batting emails back and forth. Whereas instant messaging, things like WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger and text messaging, is a much more personal communication method. You can put emojis in and smileys and GIFs and things like that. It makes it, sometimes communication can be misconstrued in emails, and instant messaging sort of fixes that to an extent. So like I say, for a long time, 2 or 3 years, we've had WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger, and the business world sort of fell behind a little bit and still very much relies on email, which is a 30-year-old technology. So Microsoft have launched this thing called Teams. It's about 2 years old now. It's been rapidly developing, certainly over the past few months. And Teams is a communication and collaboration client. So what it does is you can do chat, you can do video, you can share content, you can share your screen, and you can collaborate, which means that you can work on an Excel file together while there's a video conference going on, and it sort of brings people together in remote locations, and we all know how important that's been over the last 10 weeks or so. So I'm going to flip over to my laptop now. I'm going to start to, I've got Teams open in a web browser, and I'm going to start with the feature that's probably most prominent, which is Teams, which is all sort of built upon. So in the Microsoft Teams client, you've sort of got 3 distinct initial places to interact with the product. And there's this sidebar down the left-hand side, which has got various options, and you can customize that, and your IT people can customize that for you. Then there's this section here where you flip between various parts of the product, and then the main messaging window. So we're going to start with Teams. And here I've got a demo team, and then these things underneath the team are called channels. Okay, so just to give you some understanding of what a team and a channel is, typically in a small business, you might just have one team, which would be everything tech. And then under that will be these channels. Now, the channels are the various business functions. In a huge business, you probably have lots of different teams, or even, a sort of medium-sized business, you might have lots of different teams with separate channels underneath them. But for the purposes of keeping things simple for this demo, we're going to see a team, which is the thing with the red marker next to it, and a channel underneath it. So a team would be everything tech, and a channel could be accounts, marketing, sales, customer service. And there's a team and a channel, are structured groups of people that come together to communicate about the same thing. That's probably one of the easiest ways to describe what teams and channels are. Okay, so I've got my, this says demo team, but imagine that was everything tech, and then this was accounts underneath. And the basic premise of the communication tool is that I can instant message in here. Now, this thing here where I've typed a message is called a conversation thread. And something that people often miss is when you reply to a conversation, then you need to reply in this section here as opposed to this section here. And there's a good reason for that. Is because if I start to type, there could be lots of separate conversations going on in this channel. So two people could be having a conversation together about a certain subject. Now, if those two people are starting new threads every time, it can get extremely confusing for the other people that are trying to follow the conversation. So if I type a message here, everybody that's replying to that conversation thread should type there. Okay, so that is something that straight away people often miss out in Microsoft Teams. They don't reply to the same conversation thread. So, and if you don't do that, it means that what happens is 10 of these messages come up, and then you reply to a message starting a new conversation, and nobody knows what you're replying to. Okay, so very important to start message when somebody starts a message to reply in the same thread. Okay, so as you go on in your usage of Microsoft Teams, as you can imagine, if you're a member of lots of different teams and lots of different channels, then this window can soon get extremely busy. And just like any conversation that's going on in the office, it's very easy for people to miss out on parts of the conversation. And if you want to rectify that, if you want to create that situation where you're in the office and you shout out at the office, you sort of broadcast to everybody that you want their attention, you can mention the name of the channel by doing an @ symbol and doing general. Okay, so that's the name of this channel here, general. And what that will do is it will pop up a little notification that somebody is broadcasting and trying to get the attention of everybody that's involved. Okay, so we're going to cover notifications in a little bit, but they'll also get a notification that something's been posted. Okay, now if you're a member of a team, then by default you can create channels underneath that team, and there are two different types of channel. There are standard channels and private channels. Now, something it's really important to remember is that if you create a private channel is something where you only want a limited amount of individuals to see. So everybody is a member of the Everything Tech team, for example. But if you wanted to create a channel for accounts, let's say, underneath, and you only want people in the accounts department to be able to see that channel, you need to create that as private. And it's really important that you remember that that can only be done at the creation of the channel. Okay, so I can click here and do add channel, and that is where I change the privacy settings on the channel here from standard to private. And as I go through this wizard, it will ask who I want to be added to the private channel. Okay, so it's really important that if your channel is going to be private, you need to make that choice before you create, or at the time of creation, because you can't change it from standard to private at a later date. Okay, so that's the basic difference between teams and channels. Team, everybody's involved in. I mean, you can choose who's involved in a team, but by default, I suggest that most small businesses have one team and then create private channels underneath that team, and you can choose who's part of a private channel. Now, if, for example, you're typing away and you're having a conversation with everybody that's in this channel, and the conversation just isn't cutting it. Let's say, you know, you're getting sick of typing long sentences and you just want to get everybody straight onto a call. There's a little button down here, a little camera button. And what that will do is that'll go and grab everybody that's a member of this channel and open up an instant video call. All right, so that's the simplest way to start a video conversation, or a conference call, as most of us would call it in Microsoft Teams, is by hitting this button down here, and it will instantly go and get everybody and bring them into the call. It's just worth mentioning at this point, it'll do that regardless of where people are. If they've got the mobile app on their iPad or their iPhone or their Android device, it's a really good app that goes across all platforms, and it'll go and get those people regardless of their location. So, you know, if you really need to chat to everybody, and it doesn't matter where they are, they could be walking down the street, they could be in a Starbucks or whatever. If you hit that Meet Now button, it'll just instantly go and get them and bring them into a call. There's some other controls here. I'm going to come back to files in a little bit, but here you can add smileys and GIFs, so emojis and GIFs. So that, again, going back to where I was at the start, that makes the conversation a little bit more personal and allows you to bring some of your emotion into the call. So sometimes things can get misconstrued when you're just staring at a computer screen. Okay, so that's the basics of Teams and channels. I hope that's clear. Any questions, just give Ben a shout there and he'll be able to answer them. But that's the basis on what the product is. It's about instantly connecting people to be able to get and send and receive information without having to rely on tedious emails. Okay, it's worth mentioning at this stage that you can invite third parties into a team or a channel at any time, even after you've created it. So this could be suppliers and customers. You just invite them into a team or a channel. If you invite somebody that is external, they're called a guest. So you can add people in at any time. So if I do manage here, there's an add member button, and I can just type a person's name. Now, if they're already part of my organization, it'll pop up. And if they're not, just continue to type their email address, and it'll pop up there saying, would you like to invite an external third party? It's worth mentioning that your IT admin may have disabled that functionality for you to talk to external parties, and he can whitelist certain people. So if you've got a supplier or a customer that you think you're going to talk to on a regular basis, your IT manager can whitelist their organization so that they can be involved in external third parties can be involved in your teams. Okay. In addition to Teams, there's a chat function. Okay, so remember from before, a team or a channel is a group of structured individuals that form part of your organization or an external third party, but it's a team of consistent people. Now, it might be that you just want to talk to somebody else in your organization ad hoc. Maybe they're not part of your channel or they're not part of your team. And the chat function allows for that. And this is a little bit like any kind of instant messaging application. Again, there's nothing stopping you inviting third parties, suppliers, customers into chats. And this is the new chat button here. So there's a little pencil, and it asks you to enter the name or the email of the person that you want to invite. So in this instance, I'm going to invite Ben. Again, you could invite, by typing the full email address, you can invite another person into this chat. Now, what you can see here is something significant. Because this test user, I'm logged in as ET test at the moment, has never had a conversation with Ben, this conversation window is blank. Now, if I change that over to Thomas, because this user has already had a chat with Thomas, it brings back the existing chat. So this is a chat that we had on the 25th of March, and that, oh, sorry, the lights have just gone off. I'm just going to ask my glamorous assistant to turn the lights back on because they're on a fancy sensor. I don't want you to miss out on seeing my face for too long. There we go. Oh, and as if by magic. Thank you very much. So in a chat, you get the chat interface. And so what I was getting at before was that because Thomas and I have chatted before, you can see the history of our conversation. But if I add Ben in here, the three of us have talked before. If I add another person into this chat, you can see that because the four of us have never had a conversation before, the chat history window has gone blank. Okay, now that's not the same in a team. So if you add somebody to a team, then they're going to be able to see the entire previous history of the team chat. Okay, so it's worth just noting that, you know, when people join a team, they can go back and read the prior history, but that's not the case with a chat. Now, there's some intelligence going on up here. You can see that these people are all grey, and when you hover over them, it tells you what they're up to at the moment. That's a thing called presence. Now, you might have seen presence if you're already using Teams or you're just using Microsoft Outlook. Presence puts a little dot, and it's green, red, or yellow underneath the person's avatar. And presence information is really important and really big part of Microsoft Teams instant messaging, because traditionally, if you was trying to get hold of somebody, then you might call their mobile, you might call their desk phone, you might send them an email, and you're spending a lot of time trying to find out where people are. Now, presence information lets you see at a glance whether people are available. And it's intelligent too. It comes from Microsoft Outlook. So because Ben is in on this call at the moment, I can see that he is in a call. I think it was the same for Anthony. He's in a call too. When you hover over it, should pop up and say in a call. There you go. And I know Thomas, for example, he's out of the office today. So you can see I've got the little familiar Outlook out of office icon here, and there's a little bit of information to say that Two Pasties Shami is his, well, I won't go into why she's called Two Pasties Shami, but he says he's on annual leave and he's back on Tuesday, the 9th of June. So at a glance, I can immediately see where people are up to. Now, because Tom's out of the office, I think, there's no point in bothering Tom about this. I can drop him out of the conversation. Now, again, I can drop smileys and GIFs and attachments. I'm going to come back to attachments in a minute because the file thing's a whole separate thing to talk about. If I start to have a conversation, you can see we enter into an instant messaging conversation. Now, a little bit like when you're chatting in a team, if for any reason your chat isn't cutting the mustard, you can come up here and you can start a call or a video call using these two buttons at the top. Oh, and by the way, if I've started a conversation, but actually I think it'd be useful to bring somebody else in afterwards, I can go up there, I can click this add member button, which is a little bit hidden away in this top right hand corner, and bring in AJ, for example, and click add, and he will be part of the conversation. Again, notice that because the three of us haven't chatted before, then the conversation window goes blank. So I'm just going to remove AJ from that conversation. Okay, so that's the basic of Teams and chat, and they're probably two of the most obvious pieces of functionality. Again, I'll just cover that to start a new chat. The button is up here in this purple section here. Okay, so Teams and chats, the most obvious part of Microsoft Teams. That's what the whole thing is built upon. People being able to exchange data and information easily. But in addition to the other instant messaging platforms, Teams is also about collaboration, okay? Now remember, I can have the people from my organization in this team, and I can have external third parties. And every time you create a team or a channel in Microsoft Teams, a SharePoint site is created in the background, all right? SharePoint is Microsoft's document management system, and it works tightly in conjunction with Microsoft Teams, okay? So in this files section here, I can drop the files that are relevant to this group of people. Let's say this is the accounts team, for example. I can drop the files that are relevant for this team into this files section here. And I can drag and drop things. It makes it really easily. Or I can upload using this button here and upload files and folders. Now, a lot of you will be used to working with files and folders that look like this yellow. You might have an S drive or a P drive or a T drive or something like that. That's the old way of working, and Microsoft Teams is sort of revolutionizing that a little bit. And the main reason why is because this information that's in here, when it's in Teams, instantly becomes collaborative. So if I open this Excel spreadsheet here, this is a Q&A report from a previous team session that we've done. Hoping it will open, but typically because I'm in a demo, being stubborn. There you go. So you can see what it's done is it's opened a little version or a cut down version of Microsoft Excel in the background. Now, what's important here is that as other people open this spreadsheet, you're going to get a little icon here to indicate that other people have opened the sheet, and it will tell you where they're typing. So those old days of if somebody's got a spreadsheet open, you can't open it, are now gone, and you can all instantly collaborate on a spreadsheet at the same time. So as I start to type here, if there were other people involved in this spreadsheet, in editing and collaborating on this spreadsheet, it's going to tell you which cell I'm typing in. Tell other people which cell I'm typing in. Likewise, tell me which cell they're typing in, so that we're not overwriting data at the same time. And all this information here, as I type, is all being saved instantly. So if I add one character to this, a new version is saved. And as other people are adding one character or taking one character away, then all this information is being saved instantly and making a new version. And I've got some videos on SharePoint in the library and on our website, and you can see that how easy it is to go back and find revised versions. So it makes it, if somebody types information into the spreadsheet that you don't particularly want, then it's quite easy to go back to a previous version. All right. So that is the collaborative experience that's going on in Microsoft Teams. And you can see just how powerful that is. If you've got several suppliers or several customers that you want to edit the document at the same time, or see where they're up to on a project or anything like that, then Teams allows you to have that collaborative experience. It's not just Excel, any of the Office suites or Word, PowerPoint, Publisher, they all work seamlessly. It's worth noting that you can open other files in here, like this is a screenshot, for example, a .png file, but obviously they won't be able to edit that because it's just a picture file. Okay, so Teams is much more, as opposed to Zoom. People often ask me, what's the difference between Teams and Zoom? Teams is a much bigger product. Zoom's very good at doing that video conferencing bit, but Teams is a whole different ball game. It's collaboration and communication in there, and file transfer, and being able to get third parties in and stuff like that. Okay, so that's really important. So just moving on down this left-hand side, again, Teams is extremely tightly integrated into the Office suite and integrated particularly well into Outlook. So when I click down here, this is my Outlook calendar. Unfortunately, this test account doesn't have anything to do this week, so there's not a lot in there. And this is where I would create a new Teams meeting with a more structured Teams meeting for something that was in the calendar at a later date. I can click the new meeting button and I get this interface that allows me to add a title, test meeting, and I can add the attendees. So this is just like Outlook, and in actual fact, you can create a Teams meeting from Outlook. There's a big button at the top. If you create a new meeting, there's a big button at the top in Outlook that allows you to say this is a Teams meeting. And as I add the attendees here, there's some intelligence going on. Can you see where Ben's turned red? This only works for people that are inside your organization. If I add Thomas, remember this meeting's now, at the moment, it's taking place between now and 12 o'clock, 11:30 and 12 o'clock. And if I add Anthony, hopefully he'll be available today, so he's going to stay grey. If I add Ruth, for example, she's free at the moment, so she's going to stay grey. So there's a little bit of intelligence there. If I change the meeting time to 11:30 tomorrow, they should go grey as well, because those people are available tomorrow. Okay, so it makes a nice way of simply creating a Microsoft Teams meeting and gives you the information about when people are available. Again, nothing stopping me from adding external third parties here by simply typing their email address. And I can type a little bit of information about the meeting and click send, and that'll go off and send the Teams meeting to those people. Okay, something else that's worth mentioning, there's absolutely no reliance on anybody that's going to join your meeting to have Microsoft Teams. If you send somebody a Teams meeting that doesn't have Teams, they're going to open a little web page and it's going to say, would you like to download Teams? And if they say no, they'll be invited to join inside Google Chrome or Microsoft Edge or whatever your browser of choice is. And the whole thing works just as well inside of those browsers. It's just that the most people these days, especially from what's been going on over the last 10 weeks, are going to have the Microsoft Teams program installed. We use Microsoft Teams as our entire phone system. So we don't have phones on our desk and we don't have a phone system in the office. Microsoft Teams is our phone system. And it's getting better. I'm doing a webinar on that at 2:30 today. It's a really fantastic cloud-based telephony platform. And you can make calls. So I can just type a name or a number in there, and I will be able to make a call from Microsoft Teams. It can route calls efficiently to different people in the organization. So Teams is our entire phone system, as well as just the collaboration piece in here. All the files that I've recently used in Microsoft Teams are collated into this section here. And I can also go to OneDrive from here in order to get access to information. And last but not least, this button at the top here is the activity button. Okay, now this is going back to what I talked about early on in terms of notifications. If you're a member of lots of teams and lots of channels and you have lots of simultaneous chats going on at any one time, it can quite quickly get very noisy, and it can get to the stage where you don't know where people want you to reply. Now, the activity feed, basically, if a team or a channel is important to you, you can manage the notifications that that channel or that team gives you. So let's say I'm modifying the settings for the general channel. At the moment, I've got notifications turned off, but I've also got the options for banner and feed. Now, banner is the notification that pops up in the bottom right-hand corner. So every time somebody posts in that channel, I'm going to get a notification in terms of a banner that pops up here, but it's also going to go into my feed, which is the activity button. So, or I can do only showing feed. Now, that means that the activity section is a place where I could just live all the time. And everything that comes to me, so chats and channels and teams that I've got notifications switched on for, are all going to get updated here. And I can just flick, if I have lots of notifications, I can just flick through each thing that people want my attention for. So that is how you sort of keep up to date with things in Teams and minimize the amount of messing around, going back and forth between chats and teams and all that kind of thing. There's a thing called apps. So more and more external third parties are building apps. And what Microsoft are doing here by letting these people integrate their applications into Microsoft Teams is trying to keep you in a single pane of glass during your working day. So there are applications in here that you might know, you might be familiar with, so YouTube and Wikipedia, and some Microsoft applications like Planner and Forms, and they basically live inside Microsoft Teams now, and so that you don't have to go outside of Teams to get access to that other pieces of information. It's all part of Microsoft trying to keep you in a single place. So that's the basics, folks. I tried to keep it under 30 minutes. There is more to the product, but those are the basics, and I wanted to be able to show you those today so that you sort of go back to your desk with most of the knowledge that you need to use Microsoft Teams on a day-to-day basis. Like I say, if you've got any more questions, we're going to hang around for a few minutes afterwards to answer things in the Q&A, and if you think of anything at a later date, then please just drop us a mail and we'll be happy to answer your question. All right, thanks a lot, folks. Thanks for watching. I really appreciate it.